What is up, guys? It's Scott here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. Today we've got something very special to share with you guys in the aftermath of all the Elder Scrolls 6 hype. Not only do we have a brand spanking new modded build to drop, but this is one also inspired by our prediction for the next installment of the Elder Scrolls series. This is the Court Wizard. Cunning, clever, and a master in the arts of magic and diplomacy, the Court Wizard rose from the sands of the Alakir Desert and found herself in the most prestigious courts of the Iliac Bay. As an ambassador for the Redguard forebears of Sentinel, she travelled across Hammerfell and High Rock from Wayrest to as far as Daggerfall, and she played a pivotal role in many of the historical events following the outbreak of the Great War with the Aldmeri Dominion. Due to her upbringing and her contrasting adult life, the Court Wizard hosts a unique blend of Redguard and Breton culture, and with most speculation about the Elder Scrolls 6 taking place in one or both of these locations, this is the ultimate build to prepare for that game. This traditional Western Redguard mage uses a combination of restoration and destruction to play both healer and the destroyer. Her knowledge of Yakutan customs and Redguard history makes her a formidable diplomatic force, and when you aren't in combat, you'll be rising to prominence in the courts across the many holds of Skyrim. In order to make this build unique, we'll be using a total of 6 mods. For her aesthetic, we'll have the Apache Divine Elegance Store mod. For role-playing her entry into the province, we have the Alternate Start Live Another Life mod. For fresh new racial bonuses and Standing Stone effects, you'll want the Imperious Races of Skyrim and the Andromeda Standing Stone of Skyrim mods. And then we have the 2 big ones. Apocalypse Magic will spark new life into your shock-based destruction and restoration spells, and Ordinator Perks of Skyrim will overhaul the perk tree system, vastly improving the Court Wizard's main skills. Lastly, don't forget that timestamps for video navigation can be found in the description below. But with that said, let's kick things off with the race standing stone and stats. The Court Wizard is a Redguard, and thanks to Imperious, she'll have these base stats and abilities. She'll begin the game with 100 points of health, 90 magicka, 110 stamina, 0.75% health regen, 2.875 magicka regen, 5.25% stamina regen, and 325 carry weight. The Dust Storm racial ability grants a brief improvement to weapons and spells after killing humanoids. Nomadic Heritage gives you disease resistance and infinite stamina out of combat. Tenacity increases your magicka and stamina regen when at low health. And finally, Red Sand Dance can be unlocked after winning 30 battles against 3 or more opponents. With this, once a day you can greatly slow time while sprinting for a short time. The Court Wizard will use the Mage Stone, opening up the following abilities. Power of the Arcane improves all spells by 10% and all scrolls by 20%. Mage's Path allows you to learn 2 mage skills faster. Sleep to change your choice. We'll be choosing Destruction and Restoration. Finally, Ultimate Power can be used once a day. Pick one of 3 random schools of magic. Spells are twice as effective and cost half as much for 60 seconds. As for stat spread, put 40% into health to stay alive without strong defenses. This will be plenty with our healing abilities, so we shouldn't ever have to die once the endgame build is set up well. Then invest 60% into magicka for our cost-intensive spells, taking into account that we are reducing costs as much as we can via enchanting. Magicka regen will also be boosted a good bit. No stamina investment is needed as we already have unlimited stamina outside of combat as a Redguard, plus we have respite in the restoration tree. The Court Wizard was born in the region of Merkwasa, a traditional forebear fiefdom bordering Sentinel in the province of Hammerfell. To the south, the endless expanses of the Alakir Desert stretch into the mainland, and to the north, the crystalline waters of the Iliac Bay divide the Redguards from the land of the Bretons and all the mysteries of the Isle of Balfiera. In the 201st year of the 4th era, the Court Wizard may be respected, but this woman of Yakutan blood was not born into riches. She was in fact born within a stone's throw of the Alakir, where her tribe resided. Her tribe were typically simple: warriors and crones, cooks and healers. They hunted for food and gathered what little vegetation southern Merkwasa had to offer. Her tribe was devoted to Tava, the bird god, the Yakutan spirit of air. Naturally, their affiliation with the deity gave them a strong connection with the elements and the harsh weather of Hammerfell, and while she is renowned for her magical abilities, she was no warrior. She was trained in the art of healing. The court wizard was content with her role, even if it meant not seeing the thrills of battle. She knew the value of her place and did not complain. When her services were not required and she was not learning from the crones, she was reading. To most city folk, books were taken for granted, whereas her father's collection, built up over the decades, was only as high as her hips when stacked. Nevertheless, every tribe kept books. The Book of Circles by the swordseeker Frandar Hunting was compulsory for every forebear family at the very least. In books, she learned of her race's history, of the Yakutans, and of the pale-skinned elfmen across the bay. When her father, one of the chief's most capable warrior mages, was not hunting, he agreed to teach the wizard some basic destruction spells, mostly from the shock element as it was favoured by Tava. He was a good teacher, but had her promise not to neglect her restoration in favour of destruction. In her adolescent years, she continued to educate herself on history and politics from what little sources she could find. She continued to enhance her grasp of magic, and she tended to the wounds of the injured warriors. She'd grown accustomed to the sight of blood and viscera, and could stomach the stench of sweat and pus, but due to her age, she was only permitted to treat the less serious wounds. That was until one day, the day of the Great Hunt, when she took initiative. Dusk was upon them, and the ochre hue of the sand was accentuated by the sun's last rays. Over the horizon, the returning warriors galloped toward camp at a relentless pace. Something dire had surely happened. She was relieved to see her father unharmed, but slunked across the back of his horse was the tribe's chief. Gashes and grazes decorated his brown skin, but it was the blunt strike of a dune ripper tail that knocked the life out of his bones. The senior healers got to work, but they soon declared that it was too late. His heart had stopped from beating, and he was beyond saving. A stroke of impulsiveness overcame the court wizard, and she ran for the chief. She cast a grand healing spell with one hand, nothing revolutionary, but she infused it with a small destruction spell in her right hand, with the impossible hope that a few seconds of sparks could shock him out of his journey to the far shores. The electricity pulsed through him, and the dead man cried out. The wizard was the subject of days of celebrations. The chief owed her his life, and he would see her repaid. The wizard asked for an escort to the capital of Hammerfell, where she hoped to find new books to add to her father's sparse collections. Words of her ingenious deed had preceded her as rumors traveled the Iliac Bay far faster than mortals could. The leaders of the forebears offered her a position as an apprentice court mage, and she accepted, choosing to stay in Sentinel. In a court dominated by wealthy nobles, the court wizard's unique way of thinking and interacting became quite popular. Her knowledge of Yakutan history and relations across the Iliac Bay went hand in hand with her talents, and she soon became an emissary for the forebears. She spent time in Daggerfall and Wayrest learning Breton customs, and in the following years of the Great War she helped negotiate the terms of the Second Treaty of Stros Mackay. This treaty saw the withdrawal of Ultima troops in Hammerfell. The Redguards knew full well that a conflict could resume at any moment, and untrusting of the Ultima, the wizard was sent on another special assignment. She was sent to sail to Skyrim to better understand the political climate and identify any possible threats. She was to return to Sentinel immediately if she heard any news of the Dominion attempting to return to Hammerfell. And so she set sail and arrived in the capital of Solitude. The wizard has a useful blend of Redguard and Breton culture. She knows how to think like a tribal, while also like a noble-born. Compared to the courts of High Rock, the political intrigue of Skyrim is a piece of cake. She dresses sharply in Breton fashion and sports face paint reminiscent of her time in the elements of the Alakir. She is a gifted mage in the field and a skilled politician in the courts. She is pragmatic and rational, so won't devote much of her time to religion, but she does appreciate her traditional Redguard values. She will work towards becoming the Thane of every hold to accrue more wealth and influence. When she discovers her Dragonborn powers, she will be enthralled by it and will study her new symptoms. She has always sought power, not for any malevolent ends, but simply to be influential and respected among other great minds. Diplomacy will always be her primary strategy, but she can resort to her magical prowess when she must. Her Dragonborn powers will divert her focus away from Hammerfell's interests as new plots take priority. She will look out for the best interests of her people, but playing her part in the downfall of Alduin is undoubtedly more important. She's entrepreneurial and will make alliances and work alone with equal capability. As for faction, she will of course follow the main story and subsequently the Dragonborn DLC. She will enroll in the College of Winterhold to improve her mastery over the schools of restoration and destruction. She will work with the Dawn Guard to quash the vampire threat. It is not necessary for the Court Wizard to pick a side in the Civil War, as she doesn't have any loyalties to either cause, but you may want to justify some involvement to monitor the Thalmor, as you'll want to keep your enemies close. Will a Stormcloak victory bode well for Hammerfell, or will a prosperous empire be Tamriel's best hope against the Dominion? That decision is yours to make as you roleplay this political powerhouse. But now that we know the Court Wizard's backstory, roleplaying, and factions, let's take a look at her skills, spells, perks, and her overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be Destruction, Restoration, Enchanting, and Speech. And while that's pretty straightforward, the Ordinator perk overhaul will ensure that these skills are incredibly deep, offering a diverse array of perks. Before we talk essential perks, we want to acquire the following shouts and spells. The Wizard will focus on shock magic and will use 4 vital destruction spells. The first is called Fingers of the Mountain, and then there is Static Dome and Scatter Shock. The final spell is a vanilla one, Chain Lightning. As for restoration spells, learn Healing Blossom and Grand Healing, which will be your endgame vanilla spell. Until you learn Grand Healing, any vanilla alternatives will do. The main shouts of the Wizard include Storm Call, Cyclone, and Marked for Death, but Become Ethereal, Unrelenting Force, and Dragon Aspect are also useful occasionally. Most of these picks fit her upbringing, where her tribe venerated Tava the air spirit, but once you have all those, you're set, so let's get into your essential perks. Whether she was born into the role of a warrior, healer, or even cook, nothing was going to come between the Court Wizard and her fascination with destruction magic. Inside palaces, she can count on her words, but on the road, she leaves nothing to fate and protects herself with deadly shock magic. From the Destruction skill tree, take Destruction Mastery 2 of 2, Force of Nature, Elemental Specialization Shock, Harsh Lesson, Ionized Path 2 of 2, Static Field, Magnetize, Arc Burn, Electro Convulsions, Show Them All, Storm Blast, and Absolute Power. The branch beginning with Ionized Path will bolster your shock spell effectiveness. This branch features some really nifty perks like Storm Blast, which also fits the Court Wizard's roleplaying really well. You will accumulate static energy from the air, and every 6 to 12 seconds in combat, your next shock spell triggers a ground discharge that radiates outwards from the target. All enemies in that area take 60 points of shock damage to health and magicka. There is also Absolute Power. Aiming a Sparks, Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Thunderbolt, or Lightning Storm spell directly at a target will magnetically levitate them in front of you for 6 seconds, reducing magic resistance by 25%. This effect has a 45-second cooldown. As quickly as she can smite down her enemies, the Court Wizard can recuperate from attacks directed at her. The job of a healer is often taken for granted, but her skill in this field made her name known across Hammerfell and ultimately landed her in courts and in wealth. From the Restoration skill tree, go for Restoration Mastery 2 of 2, Edgewalker, Respite, Descending Light, Overflowing Cup, Spirit Tutors, Wheel of Life, Enduring Ideal, Pilgrim, and Gods and Mortals. Overflowing Cup grants benefits to healing when already at full health, so when you use a healing spell, your health will be fortified by 1 point per level of restoration for 20 seconds. With Wheel of Life, you will gradually accumulate ambient life force from the environment and release it in periodic bursts, healing you 100 points for every 30 seconds. Becoming affected by a different healing spell or effect restarts the cycle from the beginning. Enduring Ideal enhances this effect by 25% and increases the speed of cycles by 5 seconds each time. When a court mage isn't engaged in diplomacy, counseling lords and jarls on policy and war, they are usually found mulling over an enchanting table. The art of enchanting is a mage's best friend, and the Court Wizard learned it to mastery. From the enchanting skill tree, take Enchanting Mastery 2 of 2, Gem Dust, Regalia, Attunement, Twin Enchantment, Arcane Nexus, and Miracle. Finally, we have the skill that separates the mages you find looting innocent travelers on the highways from the great masters of the courts and colleges. Armed with a sharp tongue, a mage can be invaluable to kings and emperors. Oftentimes, they pull the strings of the greatest feats in history. From the speech skill tree, grab Speech Mastery 2 of 2, Kinship, Business Relation, Salesman, Investor, Fence, Trade Prince, End the Universe Listens, Windborne, Hurricane Force, Force Redoubled 2 out of 2, Thumb of War, Merciless Storm, and Dovar Zulan. As usual, this tree offers improvements to bartering and speech checks, but the most important ordinator improvement is the new selection of shout perks. Channel Tava with the Windborn perk. Shouting summons up a divine wind, granting 30% extra attack damage and 15% increased movement speed for 15 seconds. This effect stacks. Merciless Storm allows you to once a day cancel an active shout cooldown, giving you the chance to shout again immediately afterwards. And with Dovar Zulan, shouting within 120 seconds of using Merciless Storm will make it a double shout. You will cast the equipped shout plus the previous one. So with a combination of destruction, restoration, and shouts, all enhanced with powerful enchantments, this is how the Court Wizard will play out. You'll want to use Finger of the Mountain plus Chain Lightning as your primary combo. Once Finger of the Mountain has been used, each landed shock spell will deal additional damage from a bolt of lightning. Also using the Static Dome as a more expensive, powerful move with Fingers of the Mountain to really do damage on some of those thicker, stronger enemies. Then there's also Scatter Shock as a good damage dealer, but it doesn't work as well with Fingers of the Mountain, so we recommend using it separately, maybe with Chain Lightning to just deal damage consistently, or if you're healing. You'll want to be healing yourself whenever necessary too, casting Healing Blossom before you enter a tough battle, shout consistently in battle, using Marked for Death on tough enemies to wear them down as you smash them with lightning while Fingers of the Mountain activates as a result, cyclone enemies where falling damage will occur or just for crowd control, and use Storm Call in big battles with lots of enemies. Bonus points if you've casted Fingers of the Mountains with this shout too. Use the other shouts when desired, like Dragon Aspect, just to be generally stronger. As an important thing to remember is that picking a Divine Blessing is very important to this particular build. Get the Shrine of Talos Blessing. Due to the Pilgrim perk and the Gods and Mortal perk, you will have Shrine Blessings be 1% stronger per level of restoration, so our shout cooldowns will be reduced even further, and Shrine Blessings last 50% longer and will get an extra effect, which is in this case a 20% chance to instantly finish your shout cooldown whenever a humanoid enemy is slain within 25 feet. This will be super common for the Court Wizard. As for gear, the Court Wizard's aesthetic comes from courtesy of the Apache Divine Elegance Store mod. You'll want the DE Avalark robes, gloves, and boots all in black, the DE claws in black, and the DE Sorceress hat also in black. Enchant the boots with fire resistance and frost resistance, the robe with fortified destruction and restoration. The hat comes enchanted with a 20% shout cooldown and 100% magicka regen, and there is also an option to take the enchanted variant of the gloves, and the one we want is the 100% magicka regen and 40 points of magicka. The last thing you'll need is jewelry. Enchant a ring and necklace of your choice with fortified destruction and restoration. And there you have it, guys. You're ready to build the Court Wizard, the ultimate build for building Elder Scrolls 6 hype. Don't forget that timestamps and social media links can be found in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. My name is Scott, and I look forward to nerding out with you in the next one.